Alright, so before we get into this episode, I need to give you a quick 60-second breakdown of who Frank Castle actually is because if you don't know this man, what you're about to watch won't hit the same way. Frank Castle is a former Marine career soldier, the kind of man who's been in more war zones than most people have seen on a map, who knows how to survive things that should have killed him 3 times over. But here's the thing about Frank. Behind all of that, behind every mission and every firefight, he had a family, a wife, 2 kids, and they were everything. They were literally the only reason he had to come home at all. Then one day, one single afternoon, he watched all 3 of them get shot dead in the middle of a park, caught in the crossfire of a gang dispute. Wrong place, wrong time. And Frank Castle, the husband, the father, he died that day too. What came back wasn't the same man. What came back was the Punisher. Now the Punisher isn't like other characters in this world. He doesn't tie people up, he doesn't call the cops, he doesn't believe in a second chance for the people who hurt others. He just ends them, every single person connected to his family's murder. He tracked down and dealt with personally. And the series has shown us Frank trying to walk away from this more than once, trying to live like a normal human being, trying to stop killing, trying to start over somewhere quiet, and every time, without fail, the violence finds him again every single time. Okay, that's the context. Now let's get into the episode. We open on Frank in his apartment, and I want you to picture this. It's a small, rundown place in a rough neighborhood, not much inside, and covering one full wall, floor to ceiling almost, are photographs. Every single person who had a hand in his family's deaths, every name, every face, every connection, all of them up there on that wall. And here's the thing, when you look at those photos, you can tell every one of them has been crossed out, every single one. Frank finished the list, it's done, the mission is complete. After years, after everything he went through, he got every last one of them. And he is absolutely, completely devastated. That's what makes this episode different, because you'd think that after all that, after getting justice for the people he loved most, there'd be some kind of peace, some kind of release. But Frank is sitting in this apartment training until his hands are bleeding, and he won't stop. He pushes through the pain, keeps going. And when he finally sits down, he just talks to himself out loud, blaming himself for his family, for the people he couldn't save along the way, for all of it. And at some point he picks up a knife and drags it across his skin, just trying to replace the thoughts in his head with something physical, something that makes sense. It doesn't work, so his mind starts filling in the blanks. And he starts hallucinating Kurt, his oldest friend, the guy Frank used to go to whenever he needed somebody to talk him down off the ledge. And in real life, in real memories, Kurt used to give Frank these calm, steady pieces of advice, used to find a way to make Frank feel like there was still a reason to keep going. But in this hallucination, Kurt is just mocking him, just taking shots at him, which tells you everything you need to know about where Frank's head is right now. He's run out of everything, including the voices in his own mind that used to help him. He gets up, he walks out. So Frank is moving through his neighborhood. And the first thing you notice is just how bad things have gotten out here. The news is running in the background everywhere. And the story they're covering is Frank himself specifically. The fact that he recently wiped out the last surviving members of the Notch family. The Notch family was the major crime organization that controlled this whole part of the city for years. They kept all the smaller gangs in line. They were the ceiling. And now the ceiling is gone. So every 2-bit crew, every gang that was being held down under the Notch name, they're all out now running wild, and there's nothing stopping any of them. Frank sees this in real time as he's walking. He watches a group of young guys approach an old man on the street, just an old man walking his dog, completely harmless, not bothering anyone. They beat him, they take his dog, they throw him into a parked car and walk away laughing. He dies right there on the pavement, and the dog, which was genuinely the only companion this man had left in his life, they took it like it was nothing. Frank watches all of this happen. He knows it's wrong. He doesn't, because he's past caring. That's where he is right now. He feels like his debt is paid to the world, to his family, to whoever's keeping score up there. He did what he had to do. He doesn't feel responsible for anyone else anymore. He keeps walking until he gets to the cemetery, and he sits down on the ground right next to the graves of his wife and children, and he starts talking to them, apologizing, telling them he knows it wasn't his fault. He knows the logic. He can recite it perfectly, but he still carries the guilt because he believes that if he just stayed home instead of living a soldier's double life, no one would have ever had a reason to target his family. He tells them, I got everyone, every single person who was responsible. I finished it. There's nothing left for me to do. He reaches into his jacket, takes out a gun, and puts it against his head. And then he sees them. Just for a moment, his wife, his daughter, his son, all 3 of them smiling, happy, calling out to him, and when he opens his eyes, his daughter is standing right in front of him, clear as day. He can't do it. He lowers the gun. He sits there for a minute longer, then he puts himself back together, stands up, and walks home. Now here's where things get complicated because as Frank is coming back to his building still processing all of that, still holding himself together by a thread, there's a woman waiting outside. She's in a wheelchair, and she has a bodyguard with her, and she stops him cold. She says, "I know who you are, I know you're broken, I know you're alone, I know everything you lost, but I lost things too because of you." And Frank realizes standing right there on the sidewalk that this woman is the last surviving member of the Nache family, the matriarch, the mother. She tells him her husband was corrupt, she knew it, she knew the kind of life he was living. And she knew one day someone would come along and put a bullet in him for it. She'd made her peace with that. But he had 2 sons, 2 boys, and Frank killed them both without hesitation. She could almost survive that, but the one that destroyed her was the youngest. She was driving with him. Just the 2 of them in the car. Frank intercepted them. He pulled her son out of her arms and killed him in front of her face. And she looks at Frank and says, "I am not letting this go. In 30 minutes, every criminal in this neighborhood is going to have your name and your address. Every single one of them is coming for you, and I will get my revenge." Frank doesn't say a word. He stands completely still the entire time she's talking. He watches her leave. And then he goes upstairs to his apartment, and he starts hallucinating again. This time, it's Karen, the woman who was the closest thing to love he'd felt since his wife, and even she, in his mind, is telling him, "Snap out of it, time is running out, focus." He looks through the peephole, and the hallway outside is already filling up. Someone pours gasoline under his door. The fire starts. Frank's legs are catching, and he absolutely does not care. He backs up, runs, and hits the door so hard it flies off the hinges, and then he's just moving down the hallway both directions, taking down every gang member he can reach. He clears his floor and hears gunfire coming from the apartment across the hall. Gangs assumed he'd be hiding in there, and when in shooting, there was a family inside. Frank goes and clears it completely. Someone throws a grenade at his feet without flinching. He kicks it sideways into the crowd, grabs a weapon from one of the bodies, and walks out looking for whoever's left. He goes floor by floor. He reaches the roof. He holds the stairwell door and drops everyone who comes through it, one after another, until he runs out of bullets. Then he uses his hands, and eventually even Frank gets tired. He walks to the edge of the roof and jumps. He lands across several structures on the way down enough to break the fall, and somehow stands up at the bottom. The Nache matriarch is right there watching from the street. She was waiting to see him hit the ground and not get up. Instead, she watches him get to his feet and look straight at her. And she understands she cannot kill this man, not tonight. She gets in her car and drives away. Frank watches her go, and he wants to follow. He wants to end it completely. He was this close, but then from across the street he hears screaming. It's the cafe, a little place he used to go to for coffee, the one normal, quiet thing in his entire neighborhood. Gangs have broken in, and they have the owner against the wall. His daughter is hiding somewhere inside. Frank lets the Nache woman go. He releases it completely. He turns and runs toward the cafe. He takes out everyone outside first, then pushes through the door and finds more inside surrounding the girl. He goes through all of them, furious, relentless, one after another, until the whole place is quiet. The last fighter left standing comes at him, and Frank disarms him, drops him, and it's over. Silence. Frank stands in the middle of the wrecked cafe, catching his breath, and then he looks down. This little girl is holding onto his leg, both hands looking up at him like he's the safest thing she's ever seen. And Frank thinks of his daughter. The cafe owner is shaking, thanking him over and over, and then the girl reaches into her pocket and takes out a flower. She made it herself from pieces of cardboard, folded with her own hands. She holds it up to him and smiles. And Frank Castle, for the first time in longer than he can remember, feels like something he did was worth being alive for. He takes the flower. He walks back through the broken, quiet streets, and for the first time he doesn't feel the weight the same way. He goes back to the cemetery. He sets the cardboard flower down in front of his daughter's headstone, and he tells her, "I felt you with me today for the first time in a long time. I felt like there was something I actually needed to do." The next morning, the neighborhood is calmer. There aren't many people left to cause chaos after the night Frank had, but one gang member is still out there, pushing around an elderly couple on the street. Frank steps out fully suited up and stops him. He doesn't kill him, he just warns him. He lets him walk away. Then the old man from the beginning of the episode steps forward, the one whose dog was taken, the one who died on the pavement earlier. No, wait, this is someone else who knew him. He looks at Frank and says quietly, "That boy took the only thing I had left." Frank looks at the gang member walking away, and he makes a decision. That's the end of the episode, and it's one of the most important turning points in this entire series, the moment Frank Castle stopped being purely a man hunting the people who destroyed his family, and became something else, someone who steps in for the people nobody else will step in for.